Hello, welcome to Albion TV. I am the chosen one, and today Bogle and I have the great honor of hosting a live Q&A with the creative directors of Albion Online, Graymo and Retroman. Over the course of the next hour, our team will scour chat for your questions and present them to the developers. Hi guys, it's great to have you here. How's everyone doing?
Hey,
Good. Nice to be
great.
here.
This is going to be a really fun hour, and we're going to have a lot of questions for you guys. But before we do that, I want to start with you guys introducing yourselves. Tell the audience what sparked your love of gaming and how you ended up where you are today in your roles at Sandbox Interactive.
Sure. Yeah. Well, actually, my way into gaming isn't all that common. I think I started relatively late. I think I only started playing video games when I was 14 or so. When I got my first PC. Before then, I was all about sports and doing things outdoors. But when I got my PC at 14, I just couldn't stop playing. Effectively, I would spend daytimes outside and then nighttimes sitting inside and not sleeping and playing role-playing games. And then I got into it primarily by creating mods for the games that I was into at the time. Morrowind, the Elder Scrolls games, Morrowind and then Oblivion. I played a lot and created mods for myself. And then never really thought about making gaming a career. Instead, was a tennis coach and a snowboard coach, and did service and studied economics and did a whole bunch of other stuff than think about video games. But then had a late revelation, if you want to call it that, when I was in my late 20s, and I actually studied a year of game design. And kind of threw everything away that I had done before that and decided gaming is the thing for me. And I did that here at a game school in Berlin. And one of the contacts from that school put me in contact with Robin Henkes. And that's how I landed here at SBI, got the UI designer role, took over the UI team within weeks, actually. And then did that for quite a number of years. From which I then moved into the production role, also more or less because the position opened up here in the company and there was need for it. And I had already been doing a lot of stuff outside of UI. I was in charge of vanity and character customization and all that jazz. And then when Robin announced to us that he was going to be leaving, we, of course, had this whole conversation on how do we want to restructure the company internally, and it was very important for us to grow from within rather than pull people in from the outside. And in particular, I think what we wanted is to make sure that people who already had a deep knowledge and passion for the game and knowledge of the game continue to be here. And so we built up this team of creative directors with John, Micha, and myself to continue to move Albion forward. And that's ultimately how I ended up where I am today.
That's awesome. I love that you have this like period of time where you move through Albion Online and Sandbox Interactive, and you find different places where you can use your talents. And that's one of the things I tell people. I often will help host a PAX panel where we talk about getting into the games industry. And there are so many people from different areas of life who have these talents that transition very well into the games industry, and people don't even realize it until they're about to do it or until they're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's always been primarily about teams and leading people and being with people. That's always been the thing driving me, and so that's kind of how I got into this role. But Micha, you go ahead.
Yes. So carrying on with what you said, Chosen, yes, there's a lot of ways leading into the industry, and I think I have a very different story to tell than Mo. I was very obsessed very early with games. I still remember on my, I think it was the 6th birthday when I got my first Nintendo Entertainment System. So the very old NES was still the 80s. And already at that point, there was something that fascinated me so much with these the gameplay aspect, especially like that you can be part of something and that you can master it. I also really liked difficult games, also like this era, because I grew up with this. And even back then, when I was at first grade in the school, the teacher asked, "Oh, what do you want to become when you get older?" I said, like, I want to make computer games. And then the teacher said, "Ah, yeah, sure, the stupid child dreams. You also want to fly to the moon or build a rocket on Mars or something." Yeah. Was the earliest was very not heard of. And actually, because I was always talked down so much, I actually stopped talking about it. It was like kind of my hidden treasure or my hidden passion that I didn't talk about, and I still couldn't give up the dream, right? In secret, I still believed in it, and I still wanted to get into this industry, but it seemed at that point, it seemed impossible. It seemed so out of reach. And I also came a bit from a more poor neighborhood, so private schools, anything out of this, like that, were completely out of question.
Mhm.
But I still tried to make like smaller. I made a lot of stuff on paper first. Bought like board games and card games. I drew little Nintendo cartridges first, and then later, when I got my first PC, which was when I was a bit older, that I had the money to buy one finally. I started with these, like you get to the simple editors where you have just with a mouse point and can click together with some game logic, can use variables, and was very much trying to learn the stuff on my own. Right? It was still not so common to have many tutorials online. And I dropped off at school. That's a bad thing. That don't do that when you want to get the game industry. It's definitely easier if you follow. But because I didn't feel like I get much support there, and I didn't believe really in the teachers and everything, so as a teenager, I was also a bit stupid, so I dropped out there. But later on, when I was like a young adult, I got my degrees back. So I tried to slowly work myself up again. Was a bit up and down, and then I got my first internship in the game industry. That was at a different studio for a third-person shooter back then, and that was for a QA. It was just an internship for the internal team for QA, but that one single moment changed everything, because once I set the foot into the industry, I noticed but what you said, like you see so many people from different backgrounds and different talents. And also, you notice like most people are very passionate about what they're doing. They really like that. And also, the industry really rewards passionate people. Like if you put a lot of effort into a project and you try to push it forward, in the end, the game gets better, but also the team will notice, and in the long run, that really pays off. And yeah, I stayed a couple of years there, and then also made a smaller game with some friends that made absolutely no money, but we published it. And at some point, then at 2015, I applied for Sandbox Interactive back then. Was still very early, very small team. We're like 20 people-ish, around 20, I think. And I remember also the interview when I applied and I got the interview. Back then, actually, Robin Hankes interviewed me together with the prior CEO. And I was quite nervous because the project seemed really cool. They really wanted this position, and I had prepared a small portfolio with like stuff that I have worked on, and a lot of most things were stuff that I did in my free time, which I think helped me a lot. And also, one thing I know that the old CEO really liked is that I'm personally was a big fighting game nerd. And I also organized like smaller tournaments with friends, and I was really into the details with like the hitbox has to be like this and the delay of that and stuff. And he saw something and he said, "Oh yeah, what do you think about like combat in games?" So he had already that in mind a bit. Maybe that could be something useful. That was, I think, the one thing that helped me getting the position. And the second was I had like a nice game book that I made. It was like fully printed. It's like choose your own adventure type, so you can always choose if you want to go to that page and so on, but together with like a small card game for the combat. And that was super polished. I noticed that. I think these two things really helped me get this job. And in the beginning also, I had still a smaller role first. I also had a bit with QA in the first beginning, and then very quickly transitioned into game design. And my first big task was then for the preparation of the first beta to overhaul the all player items and spells for the combat to make the PvP more interesting.
Oh, I remember that. That was a wild time.
That's a long time ago, a very long time ago. And it was really cool in the beginning because the team was so small and the iteration was so quick. We had to, and it was also stressful, but we had to make from one beta version, then we shut the game down for a couple of months, and then we had to prepare the next beta version, and we wanted so many changes. That was really crazy. But the cool thing is, you're very involved there, right? Your decisions matter. You can have a lot of impact. That felt really good. And I stayed quite a while in combat for the most part, and then over time, my responsibilities slowly started to grow. So every time there's a new topic that then I inherited, or we need, I don't know, GVG guild seasons. Okay, then now this is a topic I have to take off. Oh, the GVG system. Okay, now the fights and so on. And every time you get like a little topic on top, it feels like, yeah, it's a little bit more. But slowly over the years, it was quite a lot of stuff. And I noticed, and it was then getting more and more responsibilities over time, right? Because like with Moby, there was a need for it. Like, oh, we need a new update, or someone needs to take care of that, and then I have to slowly transitioning into more responsibilities over the years. And like Mo already mentioned, then recently when Robin was already looking for who can take over the company, he also approached us three together, and I'm very, very grateful to be in that position and working on a game that has been growing that much, and also where you can really make an impact. It feels like we can still develop the game even further, and we have such a good foundation now that feels really nice to be here.
You have a great team there. John is fantastic. I think the three of you guys are doing a fantastic job. Before we transition to our first question from the audience, which will actually talk about this stuff, I wanted to say I have this image of little Retroman opening up his first Nintendo as like Nintendo kid in my mind, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. I think the passion that you guys have for game development is clear in every conversation I have with you. And I remember like one of our first conversations, and I saw that you had the little Gradius symbol as the ship as your your icon there, and I was like, man, that was the hardest game I played as a kid, hands down. I can tell something about this guy and the way he loves games. If when he was like 7, 8 years old, this is the game he was playing, that's insane and that's awesome. And you can see that passion that you had then still decades later, and it's awesome, and it's awesome. It's really cool.
Thank you. Glad that you noticed. I actually 1CC'd Gradius. Among 1CC is the one credit clear term. The arcade games. I used to play these for high scores back then. Some of these bullet hell games and stuff. Yeah.
I would throw in the Capcom code in there and get or the Konami code.
No, that's not fun.
Guys,
no.
And I would get the shields, the extra ships, and I would still lose on the 4th level with the Easter Island heads. I couldn't get past that. Freaking wild game.
Okay, it's a very hard difficulty spike that level. That's true.
Oh, yeah, it really is. But moving on out of the personal things into this most recent update, the Abyssal Depths. Albion Junkie says, you guys put a huge controversial patch out, and I feel like you did a good job. It's not easy being a developer, I know from experience, but I want to say I appreciate you all. And I think that statement right there is something that a lot of us feel right now about the Abyssal Depths in general. The Abyssal Depths, the 2v2, 3v3 mode that you guys created is awesome. And for this to be the first one that I think that your team has led from beginning to end here, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is an awesome update for you guys to get out as the first one as a full team working together.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's not, so we've been behind the scenes very active in driving previous updates forward. A lot of the features that you've seen in previous updates have been also very intensively driven by us, designed by us, idealized by us. But this one is now the first one where we've been the
official
official figureheads, if you so want to call it. And of course, we're really happy that the update perception so far has been really good. We're getting a lot of positive feedback, and that's obviously what is the most important to us, is that players are happy, and we see the player data that we look at is great. I mean, one of the things that we just had last week was a little presentation on the comparison of player kills in all the different types of content, and the depths are crazy, spiking higher than everything else, and it's just fun to watch. It's great content. Obviously, we watch streams as well. We see streamers playing the content, and that's enjoyable for us as well. So yeah, thanks. I unfortunately forgot the name of the user, but thanks for that
Junkie.
statement.
Yeah,
Albion Junkie.
Yeah.
We are as much Albion junkies as you are. Thanks for that statement. We're super happy about positive feedback on the Abyssal Depths in particular, but in general as well.
Yeah, one thing to add here that Mo already touched on is actually watching streamers play the game, especially if they're enjoying it. They're not always enjoying, you have to endure that. But especially if they're like really invested and enjoying it, it's actually one of the most rewarding things in working on a game.
Oh,
For
absolutely.
real. Yeah.
I have to say, from a personal perspective, I love the small scale combat in Albion Online. And I've been doing the arenas for years. I've always been promoting that this, I think, is some of the best stuff we get in here. I know the unique stuff at the high end with the large battles is awesome, but to me, the skill expression that you get in small scale is just so much fun. This content mode is the most fun I have had in Albion Online in my 10 years playing Albion Online. Maybe other than that very first week of getting that first brand new game into my hands. But for a game that I've been playing for, now in post-release for 8 years, to see a new mode come out like this and capture me and make me excited about it, that's awesome. So thank you guys from my perspective as a player. Continuing with this is another statement from one of the guys in chat. You guys are geniuses for making the yellow zone soft cap changes. Is this being implemented as a preparation for future content updates? Making faction warfare actually skill-based seems like a great stepping stone, and new player experience is going to be miles better now as well. And I would throw in a thank you there at the end of that one as well.
Yeah, it's a general good change for the game. We feel like a lot of features benefit from it in the yellow zone, like you mentioned, faction warfare also benefits from it, but especially for new players, since we have been looking a lot on new player experience, it's really much better if they cannot be stomped by people with too high of an item power advantage. And that's the main reason. It was not specific for one specific feature, but just to have the onboarding way more accessible for new players, especially. And especially like if you want to have like small skirmishes also in the yellow zone, even if you want to meet with friends and do some random stuff, that it's a bit easier and you can't be out IP'd so easily.
So I want to chime in here with another statement that somebody made that is literally the exact opposite, because I think that you just did a really good job of answering his question, but I want to get it in there so you can, make sure you do this. Adam Elite says, IP cap in open world yellow zone ruins the game. 8.4 no longer has use. Why did you do it? And I think you kind of answered that, but maybe if you can reiterate on this a little bit about trying to make this a fair experience for the player.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand if you're not happy, if you're affected by it and your playstyle. That's totally fine, and I get it. And I also think we probably have to look at, in the long run, not for now, find better uses for players again with their 8.4 gear in yellow zones and safe content. You can still use it in arena and so, but I guess that's not what they want to hear. You can also still use it in faction warfare and other activities because we also adjusted the repair cost, right? You just don't get the same advantage. And the main reason is, while I totally understand that it can be super fun and it can be rewarding to get this power rush and defeat someone, it's not that enjoyable for the other side if you're out IP'd, especially if you're a new player. And then that's one of the bigger points. But no, I can understand that can feel frustrating if you have saved up your money and you wanted to get this and you did it for something in the open world specifically, which I guess a lot of 8.4 gear in the yellow zone was used for. then that's true. We will try to get more opportunities for that in the future, but hopefully where it's less at the expense of other newer players, right? If you're having fun, if you're feeling powerful, that's great. We want to empower you, that's good. But if we feel that is not good for the overall game, then we unfortunately have to step in at some point.
Yeah, and whenever we're making decisions like this, I mean, we were well aware that this is going to be a controversial decision. We talk about this a lot. We weigh pros and cons. We think about the different perspectives of players, and ultimately we do what we believe is the best for the longevity and the long-term life of Albion. And one of the main reasons, of course, why this update was dedicated to a lot of things that benefit newer players or smaller groups of players is because we want players to come into Albion continuously and to stay in Albion and to learn all of these cool things that we have, because Albion is a deep game. It's a lots of stuff to do, and the more players we can continuously get in and keep in, the more fun players are going to have long term, and that goes for everyone.
I just saw an interesting question right in chat right now. They said that like the IP change is fine to them, like in the yellow zones, they get it, especially when dealing with players. Is there any way that this could be where you don't get the IP crush when doing against NPCs and the open world mobs? Because that was something that was a gameplay style that some people enjoyed, and it's different. Now, I have my own thoughts, but you guys are the developers. I'd love to hear what you guys think about it.
I guess there could be ways, right? But one thing that I hinted at as something that we want to look at in the long run, but really long run, to be talking like not this year or something, right? Is providing you other PvE options in Yellow Zone where you can utilize this gear. With the open world, it gets a bit muddy with things like healing. Okay, how do you decide? Are you in a PvP combat? Also with communication to players, and we would prefer to keep it clean. There would be options possible, and we also considered that a bit, but we didn't feel like there was a good solution for this right now. And we would rather have something where you can bring your strong gear without an IP cap, also in safe content, but we have to make sure that this is not mixed with PvP.
Very good answer. I like that. Also, we have a bunch of questions about IP, so I kind of want to go through a lot of these at once because they're very good ones. And this one is you just talked about how the IP in Yellow Zones changes, specifically in faction warfare. Now, people are asking, is this the kind of thing that is a precursor to changes in faction warfare specifically? And will we see more changes to faction warfare in upcoming updates? And this is a question from AOTV.
I mean, I think we can safely say that we are focusing on faction warfare for the next update. This is something that we've already said in the beginning of the year dev talk, where we kind of iterated that the past update, Abyssal Depths, would be focused on instance PvP and user experience, and then we would move on to work on faction warfare. I don't want to get into too much detail for a couple of reasons. A, we don't want to make promises that we then can't keep. Development of a game is a rolling process. Plans change. And also, of course, as game designers and game developers in particular, we have way more ideas that we want to do than we can feasibly get into an update. But realistically speaking, yes, we're going to be doing faction warfare for the next update. That's what we're already working on. And we've done a lot of research and collected a lot of feedback on what the biggest problems are. And our goal is to address these problems to make it a fun, also a fun PvP experience for people. We want to have people fight a lot. And yes, so faction warfare changes are coming. That much I can say without going into too much detail.
Well, you've kind of answered a bit of one of the next questions I have lined up, so I'm going to give you the second half of this as well. This player, Solo SK71, asked, can you give us a high-level description of the focus of the next update? I think you just did that. Also, are any major updates like the introduction of roads planned for the next year or two? Because one of the things I'll say, other than this depths, a lot of the past has been about polishing the existing game of Albion Online, and I think it's a fair question to ask. But after adding something so major to the game, do you guys already have plans to add something else like this, another new piece of content to Albion Online? I see Retro is over there smiling. He's like, I don't know if I can answer this one.
So the thing is, of course, we can't go too much into detail what our future plans are because there will be the chances that they're still changing. Nothing is set in stone, and also, yeah, I don't want to take anything away that we might do or might not do or something. But maybe on a more general note, I can say we try to do a mixture of where we look at existing systems and existing features to overhaul them and make sure that this game, the whole game, and not only the new exciting stuff, stays in a as healthy as possible state, which gets more and more difficult with so many features. But we try to aim to have many features as possible viable and interesting for players. That means we have to also spend time overhauling and improving older features. In the worst case, we might have to cut sometimes something, which is always hurts, but sometimes that's just the best way out. And simultaneously, of course, we want to also add cool new stuff like we did this update. And I don't think we have a concrete ratio where we decide. It's more like where we see where we think where the need is higher right now. But yeah, I would usually after we have something very exciting, we can do something that overhauls something like we are going to do with the next one, and maybe the next update introduces something new. Let's see.
Okay. All right. I'm going to do this because I know somebody somewhere asked this, and I'm looking for a big no on this answer. Boats?
Well, I mean, well, we have. Okay, let me give you the answer that you don't want to hear. We have boats in the intro video.
Wow.
Okay, okay, all right. There are boats
no.
in the game. All right.
So we naval combat in general, boats going from one server to the other via naval passageways. Those are all things that have been discussed internally. It's a pretty monumental change to the game. It's a huge topic to spec out to actually implement. We all think it's super exciting, but I can also say that it's not on our agenda to tackle right away. I'm not saying that this is not ever happening because it just as well might, but it's not on our roadmap anytime soon.
I think that's a fair answer. I like that one. I'll accept that one from my perspective. So on this, we also have a slightly PvE question from Eternia SA. Any plans on new PvE-focused content for non-PvP players who already love the PvE but would want more?
Yes, we have been talking about more PvE editions quite frequently in the company. So, and we definitely would like to expand that more in the future. And we are already talking about plans, what we could do. I can't go into any details or anything, but there's definitely discussions about this, and we would like to expand it because we know this is one of our weaker points, and we would like to expand it a bit, of course, without compromising our core of the game, right? We have to stay true to our core. We have to be paying, like really stay on our whole PvP sandbox identity. That said, we are also a sandbox, and our PvE side of the sandbox is pretty weak. And we really also want to improve this in the future, in the long run. But we're talking a bit further out, where we might do bigger changes. So far, don't expect anything soon, right? We have a lot of other things that we want to focus on first. We have a lot of other ideas and things we want to focus on. But in the long run, we agree, but it will take some time. That will take some time until we get to the point where we can tackle it. But we're already having discussions on this now because for us, always, when we talk with you about long term or something, we are talking for even several updates or something, right?
Yeah,
That's the
like
scope
a
for
year
us,
out,
right?
2 years out. Like it takes 6 months for the current update to get finished, and people only see that phase for the last 3 months of it really. So these things start much, much earlier than players see them. Sometimes even a whole year out when it's a larger project because so much has to be done to integrate it into multiple aspects of the existing Albion Online. And you got to be careful. There's some spaghetti in there. You got to make sure the meatballs don't fall off the table. And it's a hard thing to do with some of these really large things. So yeah, you guys often things are a year out, 2 years out down the future. But one of the great things about Albion Online is it's going to be here for another decade or so. This is a great game with fantastic systems and a fantastic core. We have another question from one of our longtime viewers, great player here. Jaden1212 asks, is the market coming to the den? If so, when?
Not the market that you might know, but we're gonna add marketplace support to the dens. Yes.
Okay.
That's something, of course, that we've seen the feedback, and it was something that we've also heard already before we released the depths. Wasn't a full shock or surprise to us that this feedback came. But yeah, we're going to be tackling that feedback, and I think this is one of the things that players can even be looking forward to relatively soon.
Awesome. That's fantastic. I'm looking forward to that. Like I said, I've loved this content, but the only downtime I'm getting in it is when I have to empty out my bank. I've got so many tabs, they fill up very quick, and I don't want to leave all that T4 gear on the ground. Why would I do that? All right. Another one that I think is kind of connected to the depths. This is where I started to see some people talking about this, but this might be specifically in combat. Mikuli asks, any thoughts on allowing players to change gear while in combat, perhaps using loadouts? And this, I think, can be separated into a couple different answers, changing skills and changing gear, because those are two very, very different things, but they might have the exact same answer.
This is not tied to the depths, but in general.
Yeah. I think that
that
we can even sub-answer this in the depths with people saying, can I change my gear in the depths specifically? Because I've heard that question. And I think this is like multiple things out of this one question.
Yeah, then maybe let me split this. So let's talk about the depths first. So for the depths, if we allow you to swap gear, we highly encourage players to bring swaps, which you would lose in your inventory. And that's something that we don't want to encourage because that makes it very expensive, especially for players that are not so experienced. And really good players might be very successful with that, make it even more snowbally in a sense.
Make it too hard for the other guys to even catch up, because the guys who have that ability to read you, press Y real quick, see what you're wearing, and go, oh, let me counter this. Those are the guys that are bringing the 8-4, taking the IP crunch. They have full, 120 specs across the board, and they're like, let me go and have the absolute best chance of winning because I only lose 1 out of 100 matchups, and it's always against somebody just like me.
Yeah,
So
we had a similar problem in the very, very old Hellgates, where there was this meta on the, I think it was 2v2, the very old, where you could run around in circles, and then people brought a lot of swaps, which is cool that you can counter someone, but it makes the cost of your gear so high and makes it so harsh for newer players to join in. That's why we don't want to repeat that behavior here in the depths. As for in general, we don't want our players to also play the inventory or the menus outside of the game. We really want you to focus on the combat itself and because as soon as you allow it, it becomes a very, very important and very powerful skill.
Yeah, it becomes something you have to learn this.
You
it
have
becomes
to do
part of the meta. Yeah.
Yeah, and we think the game, we believe, is probably more fun and easier to use on different devices if we don't make this part of the game. The reference for the combat was always like MOBA games, where you also have a lot of decision making still, even without swapping. You have the buying, but that's not during in fight, right? You can do that after you get killed. This is for us. It's very different, but that would be changing your loadout or your abilities. outside or when you go back to city. As for changing abilities, we might loosen it up a bit. So we don't want you to swap your Q and W mid-fight because
Right, and like not while
learning.
you're actively fighting, right?
Yeah,
Because that opens
yeah,
you up to a myriad of additional skills. But I
yes,
think this would be like the 10 seconds after you're done fighting, which we've seen it already loosen in some areas, where some places it's still like 45 seconds to get out, and then you have the 10 seconds to, wait for your skills to come back, where in some areas it's not quite that harsh. And I think that's where people are looking for.
exactly. And this actually is a good point that we probably want to look at making it a bit easier in certain content types to swap your Q and W or your armor abilities again. We just don't want this to be important mid-fight, but more like a preparation that you have a chance to change in case you see something. Oh, this is a really bad matchup for me. I need this ability. And now it's like, oh, he auto-attacked me, and now I'm in combat. Now I'm locked and screwed in my wrong ability. There's definitely things we can look at to improve it a bit. But again, going back to the original statement, we don't want you to play the menu outside of the fight too much. And also for enemies, it's for the whole fighting, it's better if you can kind of understand what your enemy is able
Right.
to do. You can count on their cooldowns and stuff. That is things that we definitely want to protect.
I agree with that. I completely understand the mid-fight situation where you don't want somebody immediately swapping, but at the same time, there's when you go up and you scout your opponents and you see, oh gosh, I have the exact wrong skills, having to wait such a long time after that PvP and PvE encounter that you just had before you can swap adds a downtime, specifically in the depths, I would say, where it's probably where you have to switch from PvE to several different types of PvP, that being able to change specific skills at a I don't want to say a immediate rate, but at a less intense cooldown rate would be maybe beneficial, and it's something that I would like to see tested, especially before like just thrown in there or something. But yeah, I like your answer. Let's see.
That's a good point. Let me make a note about this. Actually, let me write that down because I think that's a good point. We should probably follow up on that.
Awesome. See, things are happening, guys. It's working as intended. We're getting things. It's done. I love this. So while you're doing that, I'm gonna ask a more generalized questions here, and this one's from Cows with Guns 73. Great name, by the way. Great name.
Yes.
And I'll also throw in for our guy Robin Hood RS there in the background. It's a one-word question. Dragons?
I mean, dragons are exciting. Nothing we can put on the menu right away. Don't want to give too much away, but ultimately, at one point, we want Albion to have dragons. Dragons is one of the pinnacles of fantasy games. It's exciting, and sure, there's we think about it, but no very concrete thing I can mention right now.
Okay, all right. Follow up for Retroman on this one. Retro, have you ever played those old school games where the entire screen is taken up by the boss and you're just a little dude fighting against the entire screen?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the end of that question there. Moving on.
Okay.
Just giving the audience a little red meat to play with where we don't answer any questions. I like doing that a little bit. Bogle, are you here in the background? Do you have any questions that you would like to ask before I move on to our next batch?
I've been reading chat. There's so many questions. I don't think we can answer all of them. I do have one, and it's generally about the depths. But before I ask that question, I want to tell chat really briefly that we do have 2 giveaways today. We'll be doing some vanity sets for the preacher set in the background. So fire away with your questions, and we'll draw that in the Twitch chat in probably like 10 minutes, and then one at the end of the show. But for the question, I'm just curious generally about the depths. We had one specific question about the descent into the depths, that it's quite a long session. If you play a full session, it's like 40 minutes or something, maybe more. And I was just wondering how you, now that it's out for a week, how you feel about that. And then I want to give a shout out to Not Side G, who says it takes a bit long. Is it possible to add a skip mechanic or something to go faster for souls or anything like that? So it's a 2-part question. What do you think about
Mm.
the depths now, after a week, and then?
I mean, some of the feedback that we have received has been that in particular the first level feels relatively long. This is something that we are discussing internally. I have to be completely honest that I'm not aware of us having any change in any immediate patch right now. I think we're still collecting a lot of the feedback. I still think we're discussing and pondering on whether we should change. Obviously, we also get a lot of arguments against changing anything because people are having so much fun. So again, it's one of those things that we just have to weigh pros and cons. But we'll take the feedback and we'll talk about it internally here, and then it's possible that we will change something, but I don't want to promise anything.
From a player perspective, I'll add for him that that first level serves a purpose with its lengthy PVE. You are there to get your stacks, so you are prepared at floor 2. Be prepared. I would say
Also,
the stacks are very important
there's also the side effect that players collect loot, and there's more stuff to loot for you, so the
when you get
dungeon
to
feels more valuable.
Yeah.
A quick question. This is just from me personal on having played a bunch of the depths. One of the most painful things I found while playing the depths is going to a shrine and getting a green chest out of it and not getting a stack. I don't care about not getting the buff. It's the stack, because the stacks are you have a limited number of opportunities to go through those altars, and when you get 2 or 3 of them on that first level, and then you find yourself going down to that next level with only like maybe 3 stacks because you got into a little bit more PvP than you should, that's real painful. Is there any plans to look into that?
Yes. Actually, we will change that chests give you a stack, because you're
Yeah.
right. It's not the best. And probably in the next patch, no promise guaranteed, but there's a good chance.
Fantastic. Love to hear that. That's going to make all my runs a little bit more fun. All right. Let's see. Bahi2 asks, could we get a crafting fame added to the fame leaderboards so that the leaderboards represent the top crafters? I don't know if they want this separated out into different types of crafting, because I think there is fame for Bogle.
It's
I was gonna say Bogle would know.
The expert.
I'm sorry, devs. I'm going to the expert on this one.
Yeah, no, I will ask Bogle myself probably.
I mean, we have a lot of rankings already, but more is always better is my answer. But I'm curious to hear what you guys say, honestly.
Yeah, to be honest, it's not something that is on the agenda for the next update. That much I can say. I honestly also have to admit that I don't know what exactly ranking or what rankings we have, and I know a lot of them, but I don't know every single one. So it's something that we'll take and we'll act on if we discuss it internally and we think that this is something that the game really desperately needs, then we'll add it. Generally speaking, I'm with you, Bogle. More rankings is always better, and that's cool. The reality, though, is that we always have to weigh the resources that we have and see basically where we can allocate those resources and what we can do with it. So sometimes things that we would love to do just unfortunately fall off because we don't have the capacity or time or people to do it in that moment.
Okay. Seems fair. Again, there are so many rankings out there. And again, like priority about, do you make something new for somebody to play and get a reward from, or do you spend time creating new ways to recognize players who have already done something? That is often a very hard, I don't know, line to straddle there. You got a lot to do. I think this is a Retroman question here. Is there any plans to guarantee castle spawns around portal locks or certain areas so that we know that we can fight over them without having to run 10 or more zones? And that question is from Not So Treff, or Not No Treff. Okay.
Looking at castle spawn randomization, the system is on the backlog of things that we would like to look at, because there's a concern is often that it's too random and sometimes there's nothing in your area, and these are all valid points that the player base brings up. However, unfortunately, changing the system would take quite a lot of dev resources, where we also, like Mo already touched on this, we always have to consider, okay, do we touch this one system or do we work over here? And so far it wasn't prioritized enough that we did it eventually. It's still on the backlog, but we might we will eventually do it, right? But at some point, but it might still take a bit of time until we get around to do that, because it's unfortunately the way the system currently works. Each spawn location doesn't know about the others, so it cannot sync up and say, "Hey, did you spawn something?" They don't know, so they all roll their dice individually, and this unfortunately leads sometimes to the castle that's not being so ideal for people to play. And it's something we are aware of. It's actually on the list of things that we would like to improve for castles and for the DBZ community in general. So far, we didn't get around to it, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of times like that where there are things that are, like you said, there's a lot of things you want to do. There's hundreds of things you guys want to do, but it's all about prioritizing them to get the most out of the time of the devs to give something to the players. And while this thing isn't working ideally, it's still working. And, you know, sometimes when it's working, you have to go to the other things that aren't working first before you start, you know, doing the polish. And there's unfortunately, after 10 years, there's a lot of things that need a little polish in Albion, but we've been seeing that happen again for, I want to say, like, it feels like 3 years. There has been a concerted effort to re-examine the areas of Albion that need improvement. Now we're getting towards the end, so some of these questions are going to be a little different and have other things in them, and because I think they're important, because we've heard them from players a lot. Actually, I'll leave this one for next. We'll do this one for Monster Assassin. Back when you guys added awakened weapons, you said it's just the first step to legendary equipment. So what are the plans and when can we expect them?
Go ahead.
Yeah, we did not forget about legendary weapons. They have been pushed back because we had a lot of other things that we wanted to focus on first. And I can't give any concrete ETA or can you tell when they will launch, but we haven't forgotten them. And it will still take a bit until you see them in the game. But we have them on our radar, and we have already made plans for how they should work and stuff. So please be a bit more patient. They will eventually now be released, but we had, especially since we had a lot, last year was a very busy year for us. It was this transitional phase where we had already talks about the preparation, because Robin was already looking at how we structure everything, because that's not like he does a spontaneous decision. That has been going on and back and forth, and this was a very busy time, especially with this 3 months update schedule, and we didn't have the time to work on this during that. Now that we have back to more normal business, we have a bit more time per update. We have sorted out how we handle the direction. Now we can start work on it, and that's why there was this pretty big delay, right? Because originally the plan was to get a bit work on it sooner, but plans do change, and it had to change. But now we finally are back to can work on, so that we can work on it.
And I would like to add a little bit to that, because of course, when we were doing the awakened items, for us the legendaries were already kind of part of that plan, as in we would have loved to do it initially in one update, but then, as it so often is with game development, you kind of have to prioritize your resources, and you'd rather release maybe a smaller package in quality rather than a whole lot of stuff, but then just the quality doesn't match. So this means that, of course, then when you take something and you say, we're going to move this out of the update, it makes sense to kind of first collect the data and the feedback on the first part of what you did, and then circle back to the other thing later on. And in fact, this is exactly what has happened in many of the last updates, is that we have a whole lot of things that we would have loved to do and to put on top of what we already then did release. So let's say, for example, the depths now. I think the depths, when we initially had the design on the board, it was 3 times the size or even more than that of what we now released. So all of those things that we sadly had to move out of the update along the way, just because we didn't have the internal resources to do everything at once, that is not forgotten. We're going to circle around back to that at one point, and introduce that. And we hope that all these changes for all the features that we have are going to be just as exciting as the initial release was when it came around.
Can we get any hints as to what that might have been for the depths? Because again, this is some really, really popular content right now, and I don't know if we can. I don't know if we can. You can always just say no.
Oh, I mean, I think there's a couple of things in there that are no-brainers. We wanted the depths to have more different mobs. We wanted to have more room types. We wanted to have more objectives. We wanted to do more with souls. All that kind of stuff. But then ultimately, and this is generally true for our updates, you have to take all of those cool and wild ideas that you have on the board, and you have to turn that into something that the team can actually pull off. And so a lot of ideas that we have, some of them might not at all be feasible. Some of them are just not feasible in the moment because, we also have to do this on the side or want to do this on the side. In the end, we do a lot of organizational work, making sure that our team is productive, but we also don't want people to go through intense crunch. So we really make sure that we work on it. We don't always make sure, but we work on getting a manageable package both for the team, but also one that is exciting for the players the way we release it.
I think that's a great answer that fills a lot of topics there. I really appreciate going into some of the decision-making strategies that you guys have and how it really is a situation where you really have to pick what's most important for your time. It's not an easy thing to do, and I think that's something that the players, not all of them are aware. They're like, just do it is the most common thing I heard. Just fix it, stupid.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. It's like, come on.
I love those posts where it's like, you just have to do this. That takes literally 2 hours. But then you forget that we have to build server and client versions. We have to submit to all the different platforms that we support, and all that stuff takes weeks. We do try. We really, really try, and we desperately want to, because we're also players ourselves. We want to get fixes to some of the things out there that are really egregious and are not fun to deal with, and we do it as much as we can. But the reality of it is that there's a lot of organizational effort and a lot of kind of pipeline planning going into all of these things, and that's work, and that takes time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think Bogle has a question for you guys next.
There's again so many questions. I think my first question has to be, what do we do with all these questions that we can't get to today? I know the community team is watching, but I'm curious what we can do with all these other questions.
Well,
Bogle, I guess we'll just have to do this again, right?
Oh, that's a great answer. I was going to give the answer you just gave, Bogle. They have a limited amount of time, and they have to prioritize which things we get done in a limited amount of time. But yes, guys, it would be absolutely fantastic to have you guys on again. I think this has been very successful so far, and it would just be fun to have more discussions with you. But yeah, Bogle, your question there was, I believe, about the future of character name changes?
Yeah, just in general, if that has come up again, because I know that in the past name changes and guild name changes were considered to be not possible because your personal history carries around with you. And I was just wondering if that is still the case, and what do you think about changing names or guild names?
So, maybe I could say, without going into too much detail, that in a social game like Albion Online and MMO, your name obviously is your track record in a way, and we don't want to entirely give up on that. However, it's not impossible that we're going to make some changes here. In particular, one of the other things that I read in chat here a lot is server transfers, and in line with server transfers, we're going to have to think about name changes, because you're going to transfer characters potentially from one server to the other where somebody else already has that name. So as we don't have specific solutions or timelines in place for that right now, it's definitely something that we're gonna put back on the menu, making no promises. But we'll have to talk about it, and there might be something coming there.
Okay. That's some hope for some people out there who may or may not have been in too many guilds for one reason or another.
Or maybe have just created their name when they were a very
Yeah.
in a bad place in life and created a dumb name.
young. Yeah, just young people in general. Retroman,
I mean,
your face there, you're like,
on that-
yeah,
on that-
I've seen some of those.
I can maybe I can say something on that topic specifically because it happens so often. I'm sitting here in the office right now, and what you don't see is up there we have monitors of players playing the game. We see players playing the game. We see a lot of wacky names out there.
Oh yeah, I have to read those names out loud in front of other people. It can be fun. Trying to find creative solutions to some of these names so that people know who you're talking about without Twitch tagging me for talking about it. All right. Now we have some other questions here, but first, there's some wide-ranging ones. But this one is one from one of our guys in chat right now who's actually helping out with stuff behind the scenes here. L Forward asks, can you add the option to buy guild islands in Brazilian? This would help a lot with loot splits since we don't need to do it all through chests on private islands.
I mean, we want to eventually. Again, it's a matter of prioritizing resources and level design and environment art are the resources primarily that we would need for this. They're also heavily involved with other things, but it's generally not completely off the table. That much I can say.
Okay, we're coming to our last few questions here because I do want to get you guys out in a reasonable amount of time. I said you'd only have to be here an hour, and we're going to do that for you, get you out as quick as possible. Now, the next two are near and dear to me. This one is from Ara QT, and they ask, will the arena have an update like reputation system because too many players trolling, and also the matchmaking is not fair for different ranks? I think there's a lot of things with arena there we could talk about, but just keeping it tight would be great.
There's nothing big planned for right now, but I can tell you, I personally would really like to do something for the arena because I think it's a very cool feature. I also really enjoy that because it's a quick jump in, get your PvP fix, and jump out. At the moment, it's in a state where we think it's not in a bad state. It has issues, like you mentioned, and we have been prioritizing other topics where we think the need for changes have been bigger. That's why we didn't do anything. We might look at some smaller changes in the closer future. At the moment, we have not planned any bigger changes for the arena right now because we feel there's topics in the game that need more attention, like for instance, faction warfare, where we feel like we need to do more to get it in a state where we are happy with.
Okay, I will go ahead.
I would really like to do some changes on Arena. I have actually a list of things that I would like to do, and maybe we can slot in some smaller things in between. Okay. That's always possible. But yeah, I can totally relate to that. But we have to be reasonable with where we spend our resources best, where we feel it's the best spent for the health of the game.
Okay, we have another comment on. I'll put it into that category right there. Costas 2001 GR says, Retroman, you have my highest respect. Keep it up. We talk about all the time how difficult your job of balancing Albion Online was, and just the incredible job that you did. There are so many different game modes: 2v2, now 3v3, 5v5, 1v1, 1vx, xvx, medium scale, large scale, and super large scale. So that is a near impossible task. I have to agree with this guy that, like, you guys as a team has been tremendous. I am so impressed. I love what Lucrative is doing now. It's so cool to see how you guys were able to handle it early and the lessons learned through the early phases and how the development has changed over time. It's been an honor, honestly, to watch it. I love it so much. Now I'm going to go to a question. And this one is from Robin Hood RS, and this is a tough one. This one didn't even make my list, but I saw it and I said, you know what, Robin, you're right. Is there any way we can get a public comment on ZVZ performance that's currently affecting players? Because they would love it if you guys said anything and then Robin could just send it to them so they know that this is something that you guys are aware of and we're working on it. And it's just, oof, it's tough.
One of our senior coders is looking into the performance right now to look what we can do. And we always take this with a grain of salt because just looking at it, we look what we can improve, and there will probably be some changes. But we take that very seriously, and it's something that takes a lot of work and a lot of decision making. We might actually also have to adjust some abilities again, which we sometimes do when the coder says, why the fuck, why is this ability doing this and that? That's too many effects at once. We told you about the performance,
Yep.
but we have a very very smart senior coder looking at it right now. And today actually was a discussion about a specific spell where we want to make adjustments.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much for that. Much appreciated. There are many, many members of our audience who are thrilled. Robin is super happy in the back end right now. And this is going to be our last question before I say thank you and let you guys go. Matt SP, Camille ASD1, so many people have asked questions regarding this next one. Is it PS5, please? Switch console when? Can I play this on my Xbox? Albion is a multi-platform game. There's many platforms that Albion has already excelled at. There is one area of the market that has been left untapped as a whole. Will we see Albion on consoles? Is that something we can expect to see in the future?
I mean, we've always wanted Albion to be a fully cross-platform experience, and we're getting closer and closer to that. With the many platforms that we support. Yeah, we will want to investigate consoles, of course. It would be stupid not to, but it also comes with a whole lot of challenges. MMOs in particular, or any form of UI-heavy game, is not exactly easy to play on a controller. So there's a lot of research that would need to happen, and that needs to happen in general. So not going to categorically say no, but also not going to give you any timeline for anything here.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. I'm going to thank you guys so much for being here today. Graymo, Retroman, it was an absolute honor and a privilege to have you guys on here today. I can't wait to do this again. This was an absolute blast. It was so much fun. I also want to thank all of our production crew. Bogle, L Forward, you guys have been fantastic back there. Robin Hood RS, thank you so much for getting everything taken care of last minute. I want to thank our CMs, the entire team. Gwynny, Mostly Bread, you guys have been fantastic back there. Mostly Bread, special thanks to you, man. You did so much getting this thing ready. We couldn't have done it without you. And lastly, I want to thank all you guys in chat for your fantastic questions. I am absolutely looking forward to doing this again with the next update. And until then, thank you guys so much for watching. See you soon.
Thank you, everyone.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.